Induction started was first developed by ARC UK to meet the English induction standards in 2001, and as Keith said earlier on, in the 4 countries of the UK, in England it's mandatory, it is a requirement that organisations have a formal induction process for their staff. In Scotland the decision has been made not to go down that route, but we felt there are a lot of people who like a standard structured approach, and so for those people who want something like that, we know that this works. It has been running, primarily started in the learning disability sector, and we know that the material is suitable. It does meet the standards that are set up in England, and there are probably in excess of 6,000 learners that have gone through the assessment process successfully using these standards. I've spent the last few months adapting these materials for the Scottish workforce wherever appropriate. And some of it isn't appropriate, but we feel that the framework is there for those of you who do want a structured approach. As I've said, standardised and structured are words that sometimes people don't want. They don't want something prescriptive, they just want guidance. But for those who do want something, and as Linda has said, systematic, something that will be standard across a large workforce, or that they know has assessment processes in place that will give equal opportunities to all the learners. And as far as structured is concerned, we mean that in terms of the 6 key components that the SSSC have recommended as in their guidance. We already have six sections which fit in with that framework. As already has been mentioned this morning about embedding a learning culture in organisations, we feel that a good robust induction procedure and process for everybody sort of embeds that into the workforce and echoes the 4 aims of the learning networks. We have looked at the Preparing for Practice guidance and are very happy to see that it does meet the key components that you feel should be in the Scottish workforce induction processes. We've cross-referenced the materials, the contents, to the SVQ Health and Social Care knowledge requirements, so that the learners feel that the knowledge that they're learning is actually going towards something, it's going to achieve the registration requirements, and they know that it's going to add value. The learning here is going to be something that they can put towards their future learning. And it meets the national occupational standards as well. These are our 6 sections. We have understand the principles of care, and this is where we talk about the codes of practice. This is a familiar value base, and these are the principles of care such as confidentiality, person-centred approaches. I'll go into a little bit more detail in a minute. Understand the organisation and the role of the worker is where it becomes more service-specific. And this is the section of the induction material where the organisation will tailor it to specifically echo their policies and procedures, their roles and job titles and descriptions and responsibilities. Maintaining safety at work is all about ensuring that we have safe practitioners that can be trusted to work alone. We get them to a stage in their induction where they're assessed and are safe to practice. Communication is the 4th section. Recognise and respond to abuse and neglect is a very important part of the learning. Knowing how to instill a practitioner with the values about knowing the signs and symptoms of abuse and neglect, what to do about their suspicions, and the whistleblowing. Developing as a worker in social services is probably the final section, because this is the launch pad for a learner who has gone through a successful induction. They've developed competence and confidence, and then they have to go away and put that learning into practice. This gives them some sort of idea of where they can take this learning, where they can go with their embedded culture of learning, and how they can develop and progress within their career in social services. So I'll just break down those 6 sections for you there. I talked about understanding the principles of care. The values, we all talk about values, which is about diversity, rights and responsibilities, equality, confidentiality within the organisation and about recognising what confidentiality means when you're entrusted with knowledge about people. The person-centred approaches is something that we're all very keen to make sure that we don't make assumptions just because somebody has been put into a specific service user group. They're still individuals, and that comes across very strongly in this material. Risk assessment for the worker. Every service user, every person who uses a service and requires a care service has a right to take risks, but of course they have to be measured appropriately, and the worker providing the service needs to be able to assess all the risks and to work safely. Understand the organisation and the role of the worker. This is about the role and responsibilities that person will have. The policies and procedures of the organisation specifically, and the relationships within the organisation, the sort of chain of command and where do you get this from and where do you go to for that problem. Maintaining safety at work is probably the biggest section because there are all the mandatory and the enforced safety at work issues there. All these things there, and it comes across very strongly in our material what the worker is not allowed to do at each stage of their induction. There'll be certain things that they have to make sure that they are already competent at before they can progress any further. So we have all the mandatory issues of health and safety in that section. And communication includes effective communication between people and communication techniques, as in non-verbal communication as well, and recording and reporting requirements within the organisation. As I said before, recognising and responding to abuse and neglect. We now have protection for vulnerable adults in place and guidelines and procedures for that. How to recognise different types of abuse and neglect, signs and indicators, and then what to do with your suspicions of abuse and neglect. Workers need to feel very confident that they're doing the right thing and that they're empowered to blow the whistle when they see something that they're not happy with and not comfortable with. And then on to developing as a worker. It's about where appraisal, support and supervision fits into their learning and to their career. How they have developed their knowledge and what to do with the skills that they're developing through induction. Where to go from this point onwards within their career. So this is our getting started. And we've produced it as being printed as we speak. We have already, for the workshops later today, a couple of examples that we can let people see the content of. We'll get a much better flavour of it than listening to me do a short presentation. It comes as an individual learning pack. We've done this so that it's a pack for workers individually to work through. Different organisations may want to set different timescales, so it's for the individual to work through with the guidance of a supervisor or a line manager. We've also developed the same material into training guidance for managers. So this was where an organisation can take the whole pack, the product, and then use it flexibly in chunks that suit the organisation's requirements, whether it's for refreshers or an intake of staff, or just to use as a health and safety day or a communication day, and that's very, very flexible and will meet the needs of the organisation. Then we give a one-day, ARC will provide a one-day training session for managers who choose the training guidance for managers route, because we see it as a way of quality assuring the product so that the delivery is consistent. So you take the pack, we tell you and instruct you on how best to deliver that so that it is consistent and it still meets the quality with which it's been written. And finally, as an extra confidence for the organisation, there's an independent assessment, which is, aside from ARC, it's independently assessed, externally assessed, and this gives the worker and the organisation confidence that the knowledge that's been learned will be put into practice appropriately. So this actually gives somebody a certificate of their induction process and the learning process there.